exceptions and exemptions. So we will just carry on. Now the recording is on. So one important difference, and I'll repeat that for the recording: accommodations are on course level, exceptions and exemptions are on the individual, on the level of the specific test or the assignment. So you can allow for that on an individual item, but accommodations applies to everything on the course level. And a second thing to take into account, that if the student is in a group, does group work, the rest of the group will inherit that accommodation that this individual student has. So I have unlimited time for all the timed assessments in my course. If I have a timed assessment that is assigned to my group, the whole group has unlimited time. So they inherit that accommodation, although they don't have it themselves here. So that's something to keep in mind. So when I add that to the specific student, you see this purple icon, meaning that there's an accommodation for the student in the roster. And if you don't want students to see each other in a roster, you can leave it on hidden, as we talked about yesterday. So I hope the difference between accommodations, exceptions, and exemptions is clear with this. So again, we have 2 attempts, and I didn't have that in there yesterday. So here we can just see the grading process again, and of course the rubrics here that you can just change based on the feedback you have in here, and that's how the grading process just works. Again, here you can see this student has multiple attempts. So let me just put a grade in there. Let's say I'll put in here 500, so we can see that in the grade book as well. I'll go out of here. So you can see that this one needs to be posted. Again, manually posting, because we untick the box in the assessment settings that it's automatically posted. So the student doesn't see it, but you as an instructor, you do see the grade in the gradebook already. So I will delay the posting for a little bit so you can see what it looks like in the gradebook. So I can click on the X now because I'm not at the top level of the course. So when I do that, I'll just go back to the course content area. Remember, you see this purple line, we're back at the top level, and now I can easily move to the gradebook. So I click here, and then this is what the gradebook looks like. There are a couple of different views, and I will take you all through all of those and for all of the settings. So if you're logged into the course, feel free to navigate to the gradebook as well. Perhaps you also set up a test yesterday, so feel free to put a mark in there so you can see it in the gradebook as well. So you can follow along the things that I'm showing you. So here you can see the gradable items is selected. You can see this purple line. So this is one of the 3 views. There's a due date for the display. So you can see that the due date has passed, then this will turn red. You can see that this item is, and the due date has passed, but it's hidden. So there's a line for it so students don't see it. And this one is the due date is still to come. That's why it's still black. And the same applies to the essay. The due date has passed already, and it's all graded because we just graded that submission. But it still needs to be posted, right? So that's why you get this comment that you would still need to post those. And you can also, you have the option to click here and to move the order of the gradable items as well. By using this, to click on this arrow, you can change the order of the list view. You can make changes when you click on edit. You can go to question analysis, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, when we talk about the analytics in general. You can also download all the results in a file, and you can also delete this gradable item. It can delete the marks and everything as well. So you can do that when you click on the ellipsis. Then at the right, you see search by submission receipt. So when I click here, you can search for the submission receipt. Remember that when a student does a submission, that they will get a submission receipt number emailed and that they can also download. So if a student claims they submitted something and you can't find it, ask for the receipt number, and then you can just copy paste it in here, and then you can look for it, especially if you have a lot of gradable items and a lot of students. This is an ideal way to look for it. And if it's not there, then the student hasn't done a submission. So they always get this emailed. So you can ask for that. And they also have the option to download it when they do the submission. But if they don't, they should have the email. Again, any questions, drop them in chat and Rachel will interrupt me.
Yes, Dennis, we have a question from Dr. Nisreen. You asked me to remind to show us how to download assignments, Turnitin reports, and grades showing the categories for the CLOs. Okay, the other one is, can we download for one student at a time? If so, how, please?
Yeah, so I'll show you in another view how we can download. You can also download the results from here, but there's also an option to download the submissions itself, and I will show you that in the grid view. It's a little bit easier. It's the easiest place to do so. So I will get back to that in a minute. So thank you for the reminder. And the other question was a Turnitin question, right, Rachel? Let me go back to the Teams. Yeah, the Turnitin report. So that's something that Dr. Nisreen, that I will leave up to Rachel to discuss with you, since Turnitin, it's not our product and I don't have it included in here, so I can't show anything regarding that.
Yes.
And the
Dr.
download of
Nisreen, I just want to inform everyone with regards to the Turnitin, we are contacting them to have also another session with us in Ultra. So I will keep you updated also for that one. So they will have comprehensive information with regards to Turnitin now in the Ultra environment.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay.
And the last thing that I wanted to mention here in this view is that you can download and upload the gradebook. So you can download the full gradebook, grade history, if there changes have been made, and which columns you would like to download. You can select all of them, but also individual ones, and then you can choose for an Excel or a CSV file. And then you can grade offline. And when you're done, you can just upload it, the same file here with the grades. So then you click here and then you upload it. Make sure you don't make any changes to the downloaded file. You have to upload the exact same file that you've downloaded. And then you can, with the grades, obviously, and then you can just upload here and it will be populated here as well. So that's what you can do. And we have the gear icon again with all of the settings, but I will come back to that a little bit later when we have looked at all the different views of the gradebook. And I also get back to the overall grade as well. So we'll just hide this message from now. So this is the list view gradable items. You see we landed on a list view and the gradable items was the default one, but you also have the second view and that's all the students. So there's only one student in here. That's me as a preview user. But what you can see is the student ID, username, and the last time I accessed the course, which is yesterday. So you can have an idea about when the students have access here. So all the students that are enrolled will show up here as well. You can click on the ellipsis and also have a look at accommodations, just like in the roster. So if you click here, you can also set the accommodations as well. And you can also message the student. So when you click here, the student is automatically selected and I can send a message to this student. So close out over here now. So that's how the student view works. And you can also search for students if you have a long list. And you can also decide to show more student names on one page if you want as well. So you have two list views, the gradable items and the students. Then you also have the grid view. And what I like about the grid view is that it will show all the students here on the left and all the gradable items here at the top. So it will show you both settings from the list view in one overview. So you see it's kind of small because only a few gradable items and a few students, but you can select, you can have all the gradable items here and then just move to the right and a lot of students here as well. But this is a little bit how it then would look like. You can see the mark I already put in there, the 500 as a grade. You can see the student has an exception as well. And remember, if you remember the quiz where I had 10 points yesterday, it's already here as well. You can see it's already posted, and here one still needs to be posted as well. You can see you can click on it and then you still need to post it. So the student doesn't see anything. So I have the option to click on view and go back to the submission, but I also have the option then to post it. And when I do that, it says complete, and then it has been posted. So the student can now see the score of 500 when they go into the gradebook. You have the option to, yes,
Can I interrupt?
of
We have
course.
some question. Can
Mhm.
we add column if because most of our exam is in paper based? So how we can add column on the grade center?
Good point.
Mm.
Again, remember when I said yesterday that you always have to look for the purple plus. So if you hover here over the screen, you can add a new item. So there will be a new column. So when I click here on add item, then I can give the name paper-based exam, whatever the topic was. And what happens here is when I click on save, it creates that new column, and then I can still put in the marks in there. So I can just also edit, just go back in there, and then we can, oh, this is the exact way you can put the feedback in there, because I clicked here once. So if I click here and then edit, it brings me back where I can change the amount of points. For example, let's say it's 50, I can change the grading schema, the category where it belongs to. So I can say, maybe it was a presentation. I can add a description, the due date, etc. And then I can just put it in there. And then for the individual, I can go back in here and then add the feedback and add the mark as well. Remember, with the feedback, we can also record audio and video feedback for that student. And as of next month, there's also automated captioning. All right, did you see any other questions, Rachel?
Yes. Is the gradebook compatible with a smartphone as well?
Yes, so the Ultra is developed with the most constraints of a mobile device, so it's very responsive. So also the gradebook can be seen perfectly from the gradebook. So let me otherwise just make it smaller so students can just scroll over it. I'm sharing the whole window, so I'm not sure if you can see. If I make the window smaller now, Rochelle, do you see that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is really the responsiveness of the design and what the students then can see. So it works on a mobile phone and they can just access the entire Ultra course from their phone as well. Well,
There
let
is
me
another
go.
question. Do we have to post one by one, or we can post the grades at once for all?
You can do that at the top. It also has the option postal grades, Dr. Daniela, so you can do that as well. So
Yes, there's another one.
how to create a calculated column.
Yeah.
You can also do that. So let me go back. I just showed you in the grid view how to add this item, right? But you can also add a calculation. And you can do anything you like with this calculation. So here are all the functions and the variables and the operators. So you can put in their custom formulas, and uh, the Ultra will validate that. So for example, if I want to add an average mark of all the assignments and the test, for example, and I click on save, uh, and there's a green tick, so it means that it works. And I want to have a percentage, and then I click on save. Then Ultra will do that for you. And as you see with the operators, you can do anything you like. So when I go to this new calculation, you see that it automatically calculated for this student the exam and the quiz and a percentage of that. So you can do that. The student doesn't see it, but when you click here on edit, if you want the student to see it, then you have to make it visible, and then the student can see it as well. So you can also add any calculation that you want. So feel free to try it. If you have a certain formula that you would like to use, click on the purple plus, go to Alt calculation, and then try that formula to see if it works for you. Let me go back to how can we view the weighted grades and letter grades and edit it? So that will be something for the overall grade, Dr. Abdul. So I will get to that in the settings. So the thing that I wanted to tell you, if you want to change the order of these columns, remember that I moved essay to the top. You have to do that in the list view. So I go back to gradable items, and if I want the essay to be, oh, sorry about that. If I want the essay to appear here, you see now it's at the bottom, and then you see that the essay will appear here. So you can't move them here. You have to do that in the list view. And when you click here, here's where you can download the results and the submissions. So I click on download submissions. And there's only one student, so I can select an individual student, but if I have more students here, I can also select this one, and all of the submissions will be downloaded at once. But I can also pick individuals by ticking the checkbox in front of the name. But since I only have one, it automatically ticks them all as well. So what happens if I can create zip file and then click on send, and then it will be downloaded, and I get an email if the submissions when the downloadable link is there. Keep in mind it's just the submissions. It doesn't include the annotations, the rubric, and the feedback of the teacher at this moment, but it is something that we're looking into. But I would like to ask Rachel to go to the idea exchange and to vote for that idea, so we'll get that visibility from the product team. So here is where you can download the results and the submissions from all the students at once or on an individual basis. So feel free to do a submission when you've created an assignment. Can just be a random file, and then you can go to the gradebook and see what does it look like if I download that submission. So feel free to do that whilst we're on the call. And then there's a question. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, we'll talk about the calculate percents and letter grades in a little bit with the settings, and then I go, what about the statistics for each column? Will we get them automatically? So I know that was the case in the Grade Center original, but in Ultra, the statistics work in a different way, and I will go over that at the last part of this session, what kind of analytics are available to you in Ultra. So we'll get there. Great questions. So the other thing in this third view, because remember we have 3 views, is the filtering option. If you have a lot of gradable items, lots of students, you can filter by student, by group, and by gradable item. So if I want to see, for example, only the essay scores, I can do that, can apply, and then it filters only for the essay. So you see those, and you can easily clear it as well by clicking here, and then you get your default view back with all of the items. So you can use the filter option to see a subset of the gradebook. And I know in original you created these custom views, but here you use a filtering option in Ultra. So it works very easily. And we went over all these options, right? The submission receipt and the download and upload option. So this is how you work with the different views in the gradebook. And if you want to see what a student sees, you can just go to the preview option again. But I believe you land on the content page, so you just have to click on the gradebook. And remember that now this student can just see the marks that have been posted. You can see that this preview user didn't do a submission for here. So this is basically how the students will perceive the gradebook. So it's quite a different view from how you see it, and on a mobile phone they would see it like this. And I'll just go back to the desktop view, but feel free to download the app. The instructor and the student app is the exact same one. And then you can see how responsive Ultra is. And students can work very well with a phone. So let me go back to the instructor view, go back to the gradebook, and then we can go over the settings, because you see the gear icon here is here, and there's a lot of settings that we need to discuss, and quite some of your questions were related to that. So feel free to follow me along and click on the gear icon and go to manage grade schemas, because you can deploy a lot of grading schemas in the same Ultra course. It's up to 100, and you can see that the default one is already in there. It's the US system, but you can add additional grading schemas, and every gradable item you can choose the grading schema that you would like to use. So if I want to add a new one, I can click on add, and I can give it a name that I want. For example, now let me use my own system, because we really use numbers. So what I can, for example, do is the highest score here, for example, is a 10. And I can say that the grade range from 95 to 100, it's worth the maximum score. And then we have a 9. And I'm sure there's a very different system in the Middle East, but feel free to add your own. You can see the purple plus again, and here is where you can add the different names that you would like to use, and what the range is that is applicable to this grade name, and then also will calculate it automatically for you. So again, we'll just go over this. So feel free to try this as well, and let me know if you have any issues here. So we have 10 numbers. So this is basically it. And then you can just go into the edit option. You can only change the left side of the range. You can never change the right side, but it will update automatically. So for example, if I put in here 94, it would just say less than 95. And if I put in here 95, I would get an error because it overlaps. You can see I get this this error. So if I say put 92, the right side will automatically update to 90, well, to 94, because it's still 94, and starting 94, it will be this category, so the mark will be a 9. So if I say 94 here, then I would get an error message. But if I put in here 93, then this one should, yeah, it can't be higher than 92, of course. So the maximum that I can choose here is 91. But of course, I can also say anything above 70 and less than 92 is worth a 7. So feel free to try this as well. And when you're done, you are safe. You can save. And if something is incorrect, you'll get an error message. But if you can save, then it's updated. But you can see that there's a big difference still in the ranges here. So it doesn't really make sense, right? Because everything between 11 and 70% is worth a 6, which is a huge range. So it's not really correct, but yeah, you can just change it. So I can easily edit and I say, okay, anything between 60 and 70% is worth a 6, because that would make more sense. And anything between 50 and 60 is worth a 5, and so on. And then I'll just hit save, and then I can use this grading schema as well. So let's try that. So I'm going out of the system. Let's say I want to for the essay, we can go to the edit option here, and we go back to the setting as we used as we looked into yesterday. So now I should also be able to use numbers. You see, I calculate, I use this one, and then I'm using the grading schema numbers. So the essay, and it might take a little bit of time, should update as well. So let me refresh. You can see that now it has changed to a 7. You see, so it also does it automatically for you. So you can use a different grading schema for every gradable item. So let me pause there. Any questions? We do have predetermined grade schema. Yes, so Dr. Prana, the default grading schema can be added via the admin panel and be automatically visible in the grading schema. So if you don't want faculty to add their own grading schemas, because they can do that, right? They can go to the settings. And if you see your default one here, they still have the option to add, but I believe it is a privilege that can be revoked, so teachers cannot add their own grading schema. So if that is what your institution wants, we need to have a look into the instructor role to see if we can revoke this privilege to add new grading schemas to the courses. Yeah, so then you don't have that option. All right, but so that could be then the case that makes your life a lot easier if there's only one grading schema. But we build this option because in some cases clients wanted to make use of different grading schemas. But this is where you can make those changes, and then she'll let me know if there are any issues with revoking that privilege, if that's the way, the route you would like to take. All right, that's a little bit about the grading schemas. Remember, and let me go to here first. Remember that we talked a little bit about categories yesterday, and that a test is automatically added to the category test and an assignment to an assignment, and these are default categories available, but you can also create new categories. For example, if you do field trips with the students, just a category that you just can add. And what you can do then, if you have a gradable item in your course, you can also say, for example, this essay was actually based on a field trip that you did. You can also say, okay, then I want to add it to the grade category field trips. Here it's already there. And why would you like to do that? That will be helpful with your overall grade, to which you'll get in a little bit. But you can change the categories where you put gradable items in, and you can create custom ones in the gradebook settings. And then you can also, when you click adding this item, you can also select the categories here. So here you have field trips again. And then you can also add a separate column as well if you want a separate mark for the field trips, for example. So you can easily do that, hit save, and then I do have to give a name to that. So I do have to add a name here as well. And then we call it field trips. So in this way, field trips can be their own separate mark, their own separate column in the gradebook as well. But it will become clear when we get to the overall grade calculation. So let's go to setting up the overall grade. Remember that there was a pop-up when we went in the gradebook saying set up your overall grade, so that only appears the first time. So if you don't see it, you can go to the gear icon and click on overall grade and set up that overall grade. So you click here and then you can set up your overall grade. So I'm not sure how many freedom you have to set up your own overall grade, or if it's like the grading schema, there's a default one that you have to use. Whatever is the case, it's always valuable to have a look at it. So you can have the option to click on advanced, and then you see the same, then you can create your own formula. So you can remember that we created a formula column where we saw the same option, but you can also use this for the overall grade as well. You also have the option to use a percentage or points. So let's say we're going to look at the weighted ones and see you can also attach a grading schema to the overall grade as well. Let's say the numbers that I created, I also want that to be the display of the overall grade as well. And I want the students to see how it has been calculated as well. So I leave this box ticked. If you don't want the students to see how it's been calculated, you untick this box. So feel free to follow me along when you go to the overall grade and click on weighted. Here are all the categories that were as a default in there. Remember that I added field trips as a separate category, and what I did is that I added the essay to the field trips, so you can see it's right here now. So the essay is now visible here, and there's a separate column called field trips, so it's also added here. And here you can see what is part of the category. So we have 2 quizzes that are in there, one other assignment, and that was the other essay that we created. So here you can see that there are 0 items in here. And now it's all up to you how you want to set up your overall grade. So I can say, there are 0 items in here. So of course I don't want this to count at all. So I can just click here and then I would,
Dennis, sorry
yes,
to interrupt.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yes,
Mhm.
because we have question here and regarding the Dr. Daniela's questions, if we can answer this one.
Let's see, the weighted
Uh,
total column, is that the one you?
um, I think Dr. Daniela, are you looking for the grade letter, if that's correct? Because then is in the original view, once we created the courses, it will appear the grade letter. But now
Mhm.
in Ultra, it will not be there. it will be the faculty needs to build it. Is that correct?
So the grading schema, you can use the one from the admin panel, so that one will be available by default. So they don't need to do anything.
Yeah, yeah. Not about that, but I think they are telling about the letter grade on the grade center that we
Mhm.
had before. Is that correct, Dr. Daniela? Or I can just unmute her so we can just understand what's really uh, they are asking.
Yeah, it's very busy in chat. So let's see.
Mm, I will just allowing you, Dr. Daniela, to explain further for your questions. I unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you so much for muting me. I'll be quick. It's better to speak to explain. So if I'm going to ask my question, but if I misunderstood everything that you said before, please just ignore my silly question. What I'm asking about is whenever we used to have a course on Blackboard, we had the table for the grades, right? And by default, we would have there already the letter grade and the overall grade. So we wouldn't have to do any of the things now that Dennis is explaining or explained just some minutes ago, because they would be there. We would just have to choose for them to appear. They were already prepared by IT, I think. Is that correct? And if so, will IT do that for us again so that everything will appear there and we just need to put in the grades and then the percentage will be there calculated automatically and the grade as well? Thank you.
That's a very good question, Dr. Daniela. And of course, it can be set up for you. Ultra is just a very agile system, so it meets the different needs, right? So I'm showing you how the gradebook works in case you were to do it yourself, but the grading scheme and also the overall grade, it can be made available for you. But then I think, Rachel, we really need to look into the privileges of the teacher role, because in Ultra, teachers do have the ability to make changes to the overall grade and the grading schema. So I think it's something you would like to revoke in the admin panel.
But it's there, Dennis. It's already there on the original view. They are not changing anything when we create the courses to Ultra.
Mhm.
I think what they meant is, I think I understood what Dr. Daniela is. Doctor, do you have your Blackboard open with you? Would you like to show the original view of the grade center?
Yes, I do. I can share my screen if you want.
Yeah, yes. Can you just please share your screen?
Sure. Let me just make it available here for you. Oh, I don't have sharing right. Sorry.
Okay. Let me make you as a presenter.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you can try now.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll be quick. Right. Sharing my screen. And there it is. Okay. So can you see my screen now?
Yes,
Yes, we
doctor.
can.
Can you go to original one? So you're telling about the letter grade, right?
I'm talking about the letter grade. See, we don't see it here. We don't have the percentages here either. And usually they would appear by default already. Sometimes I even had to hide them if I wanted to not
So
see them.
the overall grade is not set up in this course.
Right. So that's why I was asking if that's something that IT, through you, Rachel, and someone else in the team, will do that for us teachers, or if that's something that we will have to do now, because in the past we would be able to see it. Right,
So
Rachel? Or
I'm
Dennis, I
not
don't know,
sure
sorry.
about doctor because I think you need to create it now because on the original view is it's already the grading schema is available to faculty. Yeah. Yeah, I did not change anything on the settings. We are not setting it up anything also and even in the original view.
Dr. Daniela, would you mind
Yeah,
clicking on the gear icon on the right?
sure.
So I'd like to see if the grading schema is there. Yeah, if you click on manage grade schemas.
Sure.
It's there.
Yeah, so that
Yes.
one's there. Yeah.
So
So
why
you
is
can
it
just,
not appearing in the other in
She wants us to be seen on the
here?
column, Dennis.
Yes.
That's what I understood.
yeah,
Yes.
because, yeah, it's because the overall grade hasn't been set up yet. So that was the view
Okay.
that I was in just now. But it's also possible, um, of course, to when the new courses are created, Rachel, we can take this offline. But if the overall grade is already set up in there, and with the course copy, it will come across in the new course as well.
Right.
But because there are now empty courses were created, right? So that's why it's not there. But both methods are possible. Teachers can do themselves, but we can also work with course copy and then make it available in the course. But that's why it's there were new, fresh Ultra courses created, so that's why you don't see an overall grade.
Okay. All right. So
Okay.
what you mean is that we need to set it up. And my understanding is that in the past, this was already set up by IT, not by each one of us faculty. So I'm guessing I need to talk about this offline with Rachel as well to understand better what we need to do, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Thank
I
you so
mean,
much.
yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for a very good question. So what, indeed, what Rachel and I can uh, discuss after this course how we can make it available for all the teachers if that is still the what you would like to have, that it's been set up, because we can definitely do that.
All right.
So
Thank you so much.
no, thank you. That was a good call. Um, so maybe I can make this a bit shorter than if it's not something you will do yourself, but but it's good to be aware of, I think, because if for this first time, it might be that because the courses that will go live next week are already created, right? Um, so we need to find a solution for this. What's the easiest way? But it might be that for this first time, that faculty will set it up themselves. But we'll just investigate on how what will be the easiest way. Um, but it's actually quite a straightforward way how to do that, because you can just choose the grading schema. You will only have one. It was the ladder one, right? And then um, with the different categories, you can set it up uh, according to your institutional policy. So what percentage each category is. You can also unlink, for example, if you don't want the field trips column to count, you can just unlink it and it appears at the top and it counts as a separate item. But you can also say, I don't want it to count at all and I want it out of the category as well. Um, and you have the option. So let me look. We have two items here. You also have the option here when you edit the calculation rules. You can enable that and you can also drop the lowest score. So I think moving to Ultra also allows you to really rethink how you would like to measure students or the learning outcomes, right? And how you would like the overall grade to support, because uh, it's quite a good way how this new overall grid can support many different use cases, but also dropping the lower score or even dropping the higher score if you want. Or so it's a very agile system as well. And when you have set it up, again you click on save, and when you have done that, then it appears here at the beginning of the overall grade is also always mentioned here. So you can see that we chose a letter, so you can see a letter here, meaning that that it has been set up, and that's why, Dr. Daniela, that's why you didn't see it yet, because it wasn't set up. It should be visible here, and it should also show up here at the top as well. And in the student view, then you also see the overall grade here as well. All right, so this is a point of action for Michiel and I, just to discuss how we're going to approach this grading schema. You also have the option to add overall grade notations outside of outside of the grading schema as well. For example, if I want to call it the notation, for example, I want to use any notation that you would like to use, exempted. I can put the exemption here. And I want to use a different notation, for example, double E, because you have the E already. You can also do that as well. And I can say for this student, I want to use this exemption as well. So this is also part of the overall grade notation, and use anything that's outside of the grading schema. So you still have the ability to manually change it if you want, but also has automatically calculated for you. All right, so that's a little bit about the grading schema. The other thing that you would like to think about, remember that yesterday we talked about allowing submissions after the deadline. If you allow for that, you can still tick this box, and then students who submit late will get an automatic 0, like you see here. So I would recommend to talk about it with your colleagues and either do it for all courses or don't, because otherwise, if teachers make different decisions, it will be really difficult for students to understand why for one course they get a 0 when they submit late, and in another course it will still be graded. But you have the option here to assign an automatic 0 if you have not prevented late submissions, and then this automatic 0 will be there and students will see that. So that's a little bit automatic 0, so you can see clearly this automatic 0 here, and students will see that as well. Here you can also see the rubrics. Remember, we talked about it yesterday at the assessment setting, where you can create new rubrics. You can also do that here. So it does the same thing, but you can also add different rubrics here as well. This is the manual one. This is the AI generating rubric. All right, so that was, and before I go to the student performance, I go a little bit into the analytics piece. Before I do that, did I answer all the questions around the gradebook? Let me go quickly back to the Teams chat. So Dr. Rana, you have to choose. You can only add one grading schema to a gradable item. I know in original you can do both for one gradable item, but it's just one. And the question around the information or weighted columns and make them visible. Yeah, hiding a gradebook column, you can't do that in Ultra. If you don't want the students to see their mark, then you have to delay the posting. Let's see. I don't see any other questions for me. If I'm not mistaken, Michelle, interrupt me if there is. So I would think that it's good to spend the remaining time a little bit on the analytics part, because there was one question around that already. Because the retention center in original has been replaced here in Ultra. So you can see in the gradebook settings already something's called student performance. What you can do if, for example, I want to get a notification on the activity stream if a student isn't active for 5 days, for example, and when the overall grade has dropped below the 60%. So I can do that. And if I tick this box, also students get these alerts as well on their activity stream. So that's up to you. So that's so I'll just save that here, and then you can just go out of this, and then you will get that notification on your activity stream. Might take 24 hours to become visible. Let me check if there is anything. Now there are only 2 students in there, so there's nothing yet in terms of an activity, but it would show up here if students are falling behind or failing. I think I heard a mic commuting, Rachel.
Yes, there is question also. Can you please show once again how the overall grade percent is calculated?
Yeah, let me go back to the grade book. So we've just set up the performance, and then there's more analytics, but this is when you want to be up to date about student performance and get alerts, you can set those here. Then we will go back to the overall grade because there was another question. Let me go back. So what was the specific question, Razil, around setting up the percentage?
Yeah, overall grade percentage is calculated.
So you can, how it's calculated is right now you've chosen the settings. So like right now, the field trips, that one item counts for 14%, but you can make changes. If I want to count that for just 1%, I can make changes. And you can see that the overall grade is not 100%. So what you have to do, it automatically re-raise. So if I change this, the other columns will automatically that are open, that are not locked, will re-raise. So in total, you'll have 100%. But if you don't want the homework to count at all, you can also say 0%. You can see that this goes to 40. But if you just want this to count to only for 10%, you can see that the total is not 100. So then you have to make changes here as well. And feel free to try this in your own environment. And you can say, okay, I don't want the test to count. So I just click here and you can see the explanation here as well. It's excluded then. So that's how you exclude those from the overall calculation. You can see how low it drops because of course it also always has to be 100%. So we can say, I open this one, I want the field trips to count for 50% and I want, let's see, this has some items and I want to count this count to count for 50% and I don't want the other ones to count at all. And now I'm back at 100%. So you can see you can go in a lot of different ways. I'll save it. And here you can see that the overall grade has completely changed. This was overridden with a notation outside of the grading schema. So we'll do that. And you can see that it's now changed according to the new settings. So this student has quite a good score because the essay had a good score, right? So just you will get a feeling for it if you play around with it a little bit. Let me go back to the overall grades because you also can choose for points. And here you can set up for the different points that you have. So you can also choose for points instead of percentage, but the setup works exactly the same. So I can also exclude the test, for example, and then the total amount of points that they can score, of course, is lower than as well. And I can choose the grading schema that I want it to be applicable to. Did that answer the question?
There is other question also. That is from Dr. Dinas, that we cannot hide a certain column. Did you say that we cannot hide a certain column?
Exactly.
We can hide it to student, right?
So yeah, you can. So what you can do, of course, if you go into, let me go back to the grade book. So of course, these ones are not visible right now because the item is not visible. So for example, let me go to the essay.
Yeah, you
Hidden
can
from,
still hide it, right, to the student.
yeah,
There
but
is
in this
option.
way, they also don't see the essay. So you cannot, if they can do a submission, then they can see the gradable column. And if you want to, you can only hide the whole essay, and then of course the gradable column is hidden, but then they can't submit either. So if you want them to do a submission, the gradable column is visible, but then if you go to that, let me go to that academic integrity. Let's see, what was it? Now let me take this example then. So in the settings, indeed, you can say if they can do a submission, which a student already has done, then you can see the gradable column. My recommendation would be then tick off the box the post grades automatically. Let me see where that. Yeah, I think I can't change it anymore because there was already a submission done. Yeah, but this is where you normally then when you set up, let me just, it's the quickest just to set up a new gradable item. So I'll set up an assignment where there are no submissions. It's hidden by default, so but they can't do a submission in either. But when it's visible here, they will see the gradable column as well. And then you just have to go to this one. This is off by default here, so that's fine. But then they can't see the grades, they just see the gradable column, and they can only see the grades when you post it manually. Does that make sense? I know it works a little bit different than in original. Let me quickly go back to Teams.
Yeah, there's some questions there.
And this overall grade column can also not be hidden. Yes, you can hide it in a way that the students don't see how the overall grade is calculated, but they will see their grades. So there's another request. And so we need complete flexibility in hiding and releasing specific gradable columns. So I will let you, Rachel, address that one, and let me know if you need any help. So indeed, so this is how you work with the gradable column. And the other thing is, and that we didn't really touch upon yesterday, are the release conditions here. So if you, when talking about setting up the course, if you used release conditions in original, they're quite similar in Ultra, but you can what you can do with the release conditions is also hide it for all members, for specific members, but you can also set time restrictions and or performance restrictions. So this is also how you can hide the essay and the column for certain individuals or for everyone until they have met requirements for certain performance. So you can also, I would also use the release conditions options as into this discussion, how you would like to approach this as well. So for example, I say they need to perform well on the quiz, have more than 45 out of 50 points for that. And then you see this log that the essay doesn't appear until they have scored 45 out of 50 for the quiz, because that's the release condition here. I hope that answered the question. Let me quickly check the chat. So we went over the settings now in the gradebook. We talked a little bit about the performance alerts already. We talked yesterday about the progress tracker. So it's on basically. And the great thing about this progress tracker is if you go to the ellipses, if there is some activity here, which there is not. Let me go quickly to another course where I have more content. So I'll stop sharing and then I'll share my entire screen, which is a bit easier. And then I go to a course with a lot of fake student data, because for the analytics part, it's kind of important. If you click on student progress, so you can see for the students, you can filter the students that haven't opened this. So you can see those here, and then you can message them all at the same time. At the right, you can select the students that have started and the student have marked it as complete, which hasn't a single student done. So this is analytics that help you to see to what extent students engage with all the different learning items. So here you can see it for the course syllabus item, but you can also go back into the gradebook, click on a student, and then you can see also, if you go to the student progress here, how the student has interacted with all the items in one page. You see, so this student has marked this as complete, for example, but a lot of it is not opened. And here you can send a message to that individual student. And the other great thing is that you can also go to notes, and here you can leave notes for the instructor that the student cannot see. This student is falling behind, and I have contacted her on the 22nd of August. So other teachers know that. So just click on save. So other teachers, it's internal. So other teachers who will go to the student, they can see what I had, that I've reached out to the student yesterday. So here you can also see all the progress that the individual has done, and also see the accommodations again and the student activity of this student. So you can see how much time she has spent in the course in every single week, and also the average grade in the course throughout the different weeks as well. You can also go to the graph, and here you can see how she has done compared to the course, to the class average. So this is the class average, and there's not really activity, so you don't see a black line now. And this is Leanne's activity throughout the week, which is also 0. So I think the purple one is covering the black line right now. But here you can see how she compares to the class average as well. And the same is for her grade. So here you can see that she scores below the class average as well. So this is some of the statistics that you have at your disposal. So I will go out of this one for now, because we also have something, it's called let me go back to the content. What you can see is also student activity around the discussion forum. So you click there, and then you can see the result of all the students with this specific discussion forum, how many are active, how often they post. So there's a lot of statistics to your availability as well, and these students who haven't participated, and you can easily message all of those students that have not participated here as well. So you can do that. You can see the grades and participation around this discussion forum, and you see they all need to be graded here as well for those who have participated. So that's a little bit around the student activity. We have more analytics here. Here you can see the course activity related to grades. So here you can see for all students how they are doing compared to the hours they spent in the course. So you can see that this student has never logged in, but you can see that this student has 100% overall grade, but spent 0 hours in the course and hasn't accessed for 900 days. But you can go forward to the details and then you can come back to where we just were and email this individual student, Ariel in this case. So I'm going through this rather quickly, but you also have the question analysis, and this is a great way because you could pull a report for every single test that has been deployed, and then you can run a report and it will give you the level of difficulty for each course. So we can just try this one. It will flag the questions that have been, and let me go to the help page because I think we can have some examples there as well. Because I lack student activity to pull those reports because I don't have that. But let me go to question analysis here, and then you can also see an example. So it gives you the metric of the question yeah, so this is it. I hope you can see it will flag the level of difficulty. So if more than 80% have answered it correctly, it's flagged as an easy question. Less than 30% is a difficult question. So you can review if it's supposed to be a difficult or easy question. Any other metric is a discrimination metric, a correlation coefficient. So students who have a high score, in general, you want them to do well on question 1 and on question 2. But if the high performing students have performed poorly on question 1, then that question 1 is a poor discriminator between low and high performing students. So this report will flag if it's a poor discriminator and if the question is difficult, and then you can review that as well and update your question bank with that. So I realize this is a lot already, so let me go back to the course. Let me pause for a second. Any questions?
Yes, there's questions.
So I'm just scrolling up to see.
This is possible.
Let's see, Clay.
From
I think
Abdul Rahman Habib. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just seeing quite some activity, so I'm not sure where I should start now. Let me just start indeed with Dr. Habib. I'll just start at the bottom. Is it possible to send reminder emails who need to make submissions corresponding to the as shown in the screenshot? So you can go into, let me see. So you want to send reminders right before you can see the due dates. Let me go to the gradebook. So you can see, of course, when the due date is coming of a specific gradable item, and then you would like to send a reminder. So we don't have a pop-up that says send reminder, but of course you can do so in different places. So you can go, I would recommend actually, you can use the messages option and send a message, but then you have to select the students one by one, the ones that have not submitted yet. So that's a bit cumbersome. So I'm just trying to think if we, let me go back to the other course that we have set up. So we have a due date coming up for, and let's say a little bit later to today. So for this accident, so the date has changed, so that's still upcoming. You can go to the submission page and then you can see who has submitted and who hasn't. So you could actually send a message, and let's see if I can filter here for the ones that haven't done a submission, and I cannot do that here. So I see one hasn't submitted. So you could send a reminder to everyone here, But I'm assuming that you would like to do to the ones that haven't
I
submitted.
think Dennis, we can select the student from the site who are, and then send message. Yeah,
Yeah, if
there's
I
a
do
box,
this
right?
here,
Yeah.
yeah, it's working now. So no submission. I select
Yes.
them
Yeah.
and then send the message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No subscription.
So then they're all selected. So that's how it would work. Good question. So and then I go, it's about the exceptions that were initially discussed. You need to go to a particular test, look for the student and give exceptions. Correct. Hiding the assessment. Once the due date is passed, the column will be hidden. Yeah, you can. Yes, that is correct, Dr. Mausa.
Dr. Tanya also have a question with regards to statistics for each column.
Yeah, so let me think, because I'm aware of the statistics in original. So you don't have those statistics here at the column section. And I'm just trying to think how, if you need to pull that information uh, around the analytics, because we have, let me go to the course where we have more information. We have student activity here, and we have statistics here. So that's submission time, submission activity, how many attempts they did. So you can see that. But the statistics around the highest and the lowest score, I don't think natively in Ultra you can pull that, but we have BB data and it will soon be available for teachers as well, where you can pull like different more than 30 different types of reports. And I wouldn't be surprised you could do it from there. But allow me to work with Rashil to have a look how we can exactly pull that report from the BB data then. So I believe we can pull that information, but we just need to go to BB data that right now is not accessible for instructors, but will happen in the coming few months. Yes, Rashil?
Yeah, okay.
So I apologize, I can't hear you.
I know. Is there still any more questions? I think
So I heard someone, or was it your background noise, Rashil? I
yeah,
heard
background
some,
noise because
so
they're
apologies.
still having other meeting also. Yeah, it's not coming
Okay.
from me. Okay.
All right. Good questions, by the way. So you really make me think about some of the use cases. I really appreciate that. So as you can see, a lot of it's quite intuitive, but with a little bit of looking around, you will be able to find a lot of those things yourself as well. I'm not, there's a new, can we toggle between Ultra and All BB? Not within the same course, but if you have, if you go live with your new course in Ultra, you still have access to your old courses in Original, and you can import those items in your new Ultra course as well, as I showed yesterday, Dr. Abdul. All right, did I miss any other questions, Rachel?
I think it's answered.
All right.
If there's an unanswered question, let us know. Still have 8 more minutes. Do you have any other?
And I know this has been a lot, right? So I think the things we have spoken about, it's enough for you to get started. And Rachel and I can look at the overall grades and at the BB data reporting.
Yes.
Whilst we wait for more questions, so in the student activity, here you can see when they have accessed, when they've opened, when they've started, a number of attempts, and their grade. So you can just look at that. You can also access the question analysis from here, but you see not enough data as well. You can look at the number of submissions. And if you have more to post, you can hear at the top, it says something like post all grades, so you can do it simultaneously as well. So that's, I'm trying to think if I missed any of the analytics part. So let me go back to, if you use scoring reports, you can also go here, and then you can also run reports around your scoring content to get activity around that. And in the course activity, you will also see, so this is always the how much time they spent on the course and how is the overall grade. One other thing, so you can contact the ones that have a low grade and spend a little time in the course, but also people that spend a lot of time in the course and have a low grade as well. So those are also at-risk students, so you can do that. And with this alert settings, you go back to the grade book and remember the number of days a student is inactive and their overall grade percentage. You can change that here as well, because we've done it before in the grade book. And also the student, if enabled in the admin panel, a student can also see in their grades here in base navigation, they will see this this pie chart, and then they can see how they perform compared to the class average. So they don't see, of course, how other individuals are doing, but if the how am I doing report is enabled in the admin panel, students can see here how am I doing compared to the class average. So they get an idea where they are. So that's something from the student side of things. Yes, Rachel? I thought I heard your mic. Oh, no.
That's fine.
All right. So I think that's all around the analytics. I hope this was helpful. I know it was a lot. I hope I didn't overwhelm any of you, but my impression from yesterday was that you were really advanced with this. So feel free. You have the recording, so you can pause and repeat some of the steps of some of the things that I did. And I'm quite confident that you will be fine next week. If there's any other questions, maybe direct those to Rachel, and then me and her can pick this up compared to the other outstanding queries, and then we can address those as well. So thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of people,
Yes,
and I
thank
hope
you.
it was helpful.
Dennis, if you can stay for a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you, everyone. Those who are using the Magro Hill, we still have another session at 4 o'clock. So see you there in another meeting at 4.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
So Rachel, whilst if you want to follow up with him, oh yeah, maybe it's good to stop the recording.
Yes, let's stop the recording.